Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Bahia Muhammad, Assistant Professor of Criminology at Howard University, and I am the Principal Investigator on the study, Resilience and Success Among Children of Incarcerated Parents. For this particular segment, we are given preliminary findings around study findings. Again, we are still in the midst of conducting interviews, but we wanted to have this conference to be able to give you just a bit of insight into what the study has been all about. Just to start, I want to let you all know that the objective of this project was to develop and gain a better understanding of the factors that influence whether children would lead a crime-free life. Current scholarship on parental incarceration typically centers on the negative outcomes experienced by millions of children left behind. This national research study used in-depth qualitative interviews with children of incarcerated parents, defined as those 18 years or older. Interview findings will be centered around their accomplishments, their triumphs, and their resilient characteristics. The study results will present a counter-narrative to the current research by highlighting emerging pathways to success. The research questions are exploratory in nature, and they included the following. What factors contribute to resilience in the lives of children of incarcerated parents? And two, what internal and external barriers do children of incarcerated parents overcome in their pursuits to success? The study included 100 children of incarcerated parents from across the nation. And at the onset of the study, prior to COVID-19, we were conducting face-to-face interviews. And after the university closings, we included virtual interviews. These interviews range from an hour and a half to about 2 hours and a half in time, and they were recorded and transcribed verbatim. All of the conference panels that you are going to hear and the presentations include the research subjects from this particular study. Furthermore, the panel themes that emerge from the preliminary analysis of the data collected so far, which basically just means that everything about this conference are the research findings. For this particular section, myself and the research team are going to engage in an in-depth conversation around some of the preliminary findings that are connected to the full research study itself, which are the pathways to success. And definitely that ties into our previous recording on success and the way that it is defined. One of the things that I would start saying is, at the end of each interview, I literally sat down for a few hours and just got my thoughts together and reflected on each of the interviews and came up with a pathway. And as you can see here, I'll just share this one here. They're really long. And one of the things that I would say is that they're really dynamic. These pathways were not things where it just was an easy start and an easy finish. Some were a roller coaster ride, and some were, you know, a path making a lot of left turns and then some right turns. And as we'll hear from the research group, there was some things that we all agreed on. And by the end of this study, I'm sure that our pathways that we introduced to you all through our white paper are going to be robust and will be a representation of the population. I will say that in terms of the pathway towards success, one of the first steps was to have the truth of having a parent in prison, actually knowing that a parent was incarcerated. Oftentimes in the research, it talks about children being lied to about where their parents are. And this comes from a place of safety and security. Oftentimes the caregivers want to safeguard their children from a life of stigma and oftentimes shame because of what goes into people's minds when they think that you have a parent in prison. Ultimately, they think you're gonna go to prison yourself, and so they ostracize you and they dehumanize you and discriminate against you. And we found that those individuals, the first step towards a life of success was to say, I am a child of an incarcerated parent, and actually own it. So not every time when a child was told their truth that they actually owned it. Oftentimes those that were successful took the step of saying, okay, I now have this truth, and taking an additional step to say, what am I gonna do with this truth? also with that truth, they were able to engage in communication with an incarcerated parent, which often was a step towards success, specifically for our resilient children of incarcerated parents that we interviewed across the nation. They were able to engage in calls, mail, and oftentimes visitation. Also, they oftentimes took the path as a full family to move closer to the institution where the parent was incarcerated. Mm-hmm. And so as a full family, they were able to own this truth and come up with a methodology for moving forward. And that meant that if a parent was incarcerated in North Carolina, they packed up their bags and moved to North Carolina, which, wow, is a lot. Yeah. Which is a lot, which means that you have to have the means to do that and have the wherewithal to be able to come up with that sort of a decision. But they also were able to have more engagement with the incarcerated parent, which ended up leading to more success in their lives. Yeah. So I'll stop there, and I'll add a couple more as we continue to engage in this dialogue. Interested to hear from you all, from the research team, in terms of just some of the surface level things that you are starting to see emerge on this pathway that we are creating.
So a common or emerging theme that I saw that led to the success was huge as far as going with faith. So a lot of the study participants found peace within, or found belief within a higher being, whether it be God, and they spoke on that a lot in terms of that led them to becoming successful. That was a pathway that led them to becoming successful, was holding strong on their faith, having prayer warriors surrounding them during all of their trying times, whatever traumatic experiences that they may have been experiencing, and they felt like they just wanted to give up. They held true to themselves and they stayed faithful. I saw a lot of people saying that their grandmother was just, they were a product of their grandmother's prayers. Like, she was not playing with them. She would have them going to church, to go into Bible study, and that was able to allow them to lead a pathway or a life to success, was holding on true to that faith, and staying true to themselves. So faith was a really big emerging theme around majority of the study participants that led them to becoming resilient regardless of their adolescence or anything that they went through. So
I would say self-care has been a way that they have gone on the pathway to success. And a quote from Audre Lorde, caring for myself is not self-indulgent, it is self-preservation, and that is the act of political warfare. And so this quote reminds me of the children of incarcerated parents, because even though they had self-preservation, they were never individualistic. Mm-hmm. So it always involved a community in some way. And so they, as Sydney said, turned to faith. So they had church. Mm-hmm. They also turned to therapy. And another thing that's not, many don't consider success, is the fact of that some of them actually cut off toxic parents. And that is a way to preserve themselves and to grow and move forward. And sometimes that is needed. And not to kind of pigeonhole children of incarcerated parents, but this is for all people, right? There are some toxic parents, so they're not immune to this. And so some of them decide to care for themselves first. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's very important when talking about their pathways, is the fact of they did stuff to help them, but also in addition, they did stuff with the community. They give back. They interact with a lot of people around them, and this has helped them become successful. And even though their path might be, jagged, or it might, be circular at some points and not a straight line, a lot of times you see they chose themselves at points. And once they chose themselves, their path led forward instead of backwards.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Very well said. I definitely want to let you all know who are viewing that when we talk about the prayer warriors and faith being a major component on day 3 of the conference, it will be a day of all wellness. as well as incorporating the arts from directly impacted children of incarcerated parents themselves that actually used art as a way to maintain their wellness. So please make sure that you're available for that. It'll start with a yoga session, specifically from a native Washingtonian who is a yoga instructor and a child of an incarcerated parent who used yoga and wellness as a means for uplifting herself and maintaining her strength and her faith, as well as taking care of her self-care. I would also say that day one, we're going to have a session that speaks to those prayerful grandmothers. It's called It Takes a Village panel. So please make sure you're aware of that. And I really wanted you guys to all understand and be reminded that this entire conference is a dissemination of the research findings. Every theme of every panel is connected to the national study. And furthermore, those individuals who are on each of the panels are part of the interviewee pool. And so all of the things that we are talking about, we will pull together at the end of this study to really identify what these pathways look like. One of the things that I think is really important is this idea of involving the community. When I think about criminological perspectives, for example, Codes of the Street from Elijah Anderson, oftentimes individuals are deemed not a member of the community when they don't give back, when they're not providing resources, social support, social capital to their own communities. And these children of incarcerated parents, when I tell you, you will be blown away by individuals, for example, the organization We Got Us Now, who we co-founded sessions with during day 2. Please make sure you don't miss it. We have a session on entrepreneurs. A lot of the children of incarcerated parents did not find the resources in the community that they needed, and therefore they created them themselves. That is a success in and of itself and highlights resiliency, steadfastness, a commitment, empathy as it relates to caring for other individuals, not feeling sympathetic for them, but being an empath and really identifying, I didn't have these resources. I'm not going to cry about it. I'm going to make these available for other individuals. And so you're talking about nonprofit organizations, community organizations, all kinds of social services, as well as busing, individuals from one community into another to be able to visit parents. And this is across the nation. So this is not just in, the South or in the North, but in all of these states where we were interviewing individuals, there was this large capacity to give back to the community. And when they didn't, they felt that they were being unsuccessful, that by being able to help someone else, that was how they defined success. I also want to highlight on the path to success, this concept of positive thinking. Mm-hmm. Dr. Gatewood talked about, choosing yourself and, cutting off toxic parents and really knowing when to say enough is enough. In order for me to maintain my sanity, I have to make sure that I have this around me. And if it means that I have to say bye to an incarcerated parent for some time so that I could get my mental sanity together, so be it, because that meant the success of an individual. And oftentimes, to be honest, the parent understood it. The parent understood, I had to be cut off. They wasn't messing with me, at that time. So all I did was write letters. I didn't call. I didn't expect to get a visit, but I continued to write. So they actually helped in that sort of way by saying, I'm not going to be forceful in trying to force myself on my child. If the child didn't want that relationship, they kind of stood back. So I also found that team playing was something that happened a lot on this road to success. The caregiver was supportive, answering questions when a parent wasn't there too, answering a collect call, because oftentimes the children, as they were growing up, they're not paying the phone bill. So somebody had to foot that bill. And then also the incarcerated parent being a good sport. The incarcerated parent oftentimes saying, I'm not going to call right now because they're going through something and I'm going to give them, an opportunity to deal with this. We didn't have a good phone conversation. And my child hung up on me, and therefore I just, gave it some time. And when they were ready, they wrote a letter and said, okay, I'm ready to start engaging again. So having these parameters were an important component of maintaining one's sanity. I also found that in some of the interviews, a pathway to success was saying, I'm not going to talk to my incarcerated parent every day, all day.
Yeah.
It causes the phone bill to go up. And then we just go and tit for tat back and forth. They created a schedule. I thought that that was really sweet. And a lot of the times that there was a schedule that was created. So as you all can see, we are able to pull some of the low-hanging fruit from this robust study. And again, when you're talking about 100 interviews, 2.5 hours, sometimes to 3 hours in time, there is a lot of information. And we wanted you to have an in on our conversation so that you could see that. But we also didn't want to wait before we delivered the research findings. And that's what the Dr. Muhammad Experience is about. It's about creating innovative methodologies that allow for experiences to emerge. Research should not just sit on the top of your shoulders, but it should be something that enters your mind so that you are able to apply it and use it. We talk about applied sociology all the time, and at Howard University, we best ourselves on truth and service. And therefore, the truth that these children are bringing to us, we must now be service to it. The biggest research finding that I can say on the top of the low-hanging fruit, but also very deep into the soul of the study itself, is that those that are closest to the problem are closest to the solution. It is very important to allow the children to be able to lead, and that's why we co-founded day 2 of the conference with an organization that's led by children of incarcerated parents themselves. And we also leaned in to the research to make sure that all of the themes of the panels and the individuals that you're hearing from are the experts themselves. And when I say the experts themselves, I mean the children of incarcerated parents themselves. Also, a pathway to success is being seen, not only being heard. And therefore, we thought that it was important on all of the flyers for the conference and all of the promotions to highlight the beautiful Black resilient faces of the children of incarcerated parents, so they no longer are a hidden population and other individuals can see what success looks like. And success does look like Black children as well. Thank you so much for viewing this. We hope that you stay for the rest of the conference as well as day 2 or 3. It's not too late for individuals to register. So if you're still hearing this, or you think that there's a colleague that needs to hear this information or is doing research in this area, please have them sign into the drmuhammadexperience.com and register today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.